at a free agent or two to turn this franchise around. That's the only thing I can figure.
For the Knicks to only get Dennis Smith Jr. back, who's sort of taken a back seat to Luka Doncic, and it's been talked about really from a Maverick standpoint, they've been shopping Smith a lot this year, trying to find a deal for him, trying to get something back, and to be able to get Porzingis in this deal. Now, they've got to re-sign him because his deal runs out, but they will control his rights, I believe, where they can be in that window of his rookie deal coming off of that, where they can have the first option to sign him. But, Eric, I just feel like for a guy of his talent in Porzingis and teams that are looking for young stars, it just feels like the Knicks could have gotten more. They could have gotten a younger player that's a little more polished up and ready to go in this league than Dennis Smith Jr. is. So, from that standpoint, I think your take on what the Knicks are trying to do is absolutely correct. They wanted to shed salary. In this deal, they get Tim Hardaway Jr.'s deal off the books. They get Courtney Lee's deal off the books. That's about $60 million over the next 2 to 3 years that they've shed now. So they have 2 max slots. When there's a ton of guys that are going to be available this offseason, I don't think that they are thinking about tanking. I think they're in full tank mode. I don't think they've broken 100 points in their last 5 games. So they're a bad team, and they're completely looking to the future. If they can somehow get the number 1 pick, get Zion, you've got Dennis Smith Jr. there, and you can land 2 free agents, 2 marquee guys this offseason, and Kevin Durant being potentially one of them, you're definitely on your road in the Eastern Conference to being a championship contender right off the bat. And you've got enough youth built into that team, and still you could have a potential first-round pick down the road from Dallas, plus your own. They've definitely put themselves on a good path. And look, like you said with Porzingis, we don't know if this guy can stay healthy. Yes, he's had the ACL, but he's kind of had some other injuries he's dealt with in the past, and maybe that's just not the guy they wanted to deal with. I just felt like they did it so fast. It was like he went in there and he's like, well, I don't really see my future here. And they were like, okay, let's call Dallas. Done. It feels like it just happened so quick that they didn't even shop around. It's like when you Christmas shop, you walk in, you just grab the first thing on the shelf so you get the hell out of the mall at that point. With the trade deadline being next week, and you kind of dangle a guy like Porzingis out there, it feels like other teams would have eaten the Hardaway Jr.'s salary and Courtney Lee's salary. So I don't know what it was. Just get it done with quickly so that their fan base can't have a reaction to it. I don't know. It seems like Enes Kanter is going to get balled out. They're going to have a ton of cap room next year. So the Knicks are definitely in play to land a huge free agent. They are definitely out of the Anthony Davis sweepstakes, though, because they have nobody left that the Pelicans would even want. But with what the Lakers may get to offer them, it might not matter.
Yeah, and Colin Cowherd earlier on Twitter said this is the best day in over a decade for the New York Knicks franchise, and he doesn't understand why the fans are even complaining on Twitter.
Did James Dolan sell the team?
Yeah, right? That would be the best day in the franchise. He's saying that Knox is going to be a future star and room for 2 more free agents and then making a run at Zion. That was his take on it. And that Dallas takes on, in his words, the brittle Porzingis to a max deal. So there are media guys out there that feel like this was the best future move for the Knicks. Now, again, Colin Cowherd, he's got a microphone and likes to play the contrarian. So do we agree with that? Maybe, maybe not. But there are some Knicks fans that seem to be upset about this and some guys in the media that seem to think that it was great. So we'll see how it all plays out.
Well, we're running short on time. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to finish up with some PGA talk and talk about the big tournament coming up in Phoenix this weekend. All right, one last topic before we close out episode 235. The PGA Tour will head to Phoenix this weekend for the Waste Management Open, and this is one of the craziest tournaments that you will see. If you haven't watched this thing or done any research on it, take a look at it. Of some of the imagery, it really is basically Happy Gilmore playing out in real life. This is a crazy tournament that basically has become sort of a party atmosphere, but last year they had over 725,000 people come through the gates for this tournament. They had over 216,000 fans in attendance for the last day of the tournament last year on that Sunday. But Eric, we've talked about the PGA Tour, the fact that they have to find ways to be more relevant, but we also know that golf is a sport of etiquette. So with the popularity of this tournament, do you feel like this is a blueprint other tournaments should try to copy, or the PGA should go to other cities where the PGA could copy what they've seen in Phoenix? Or is this just best left as a one-time-a-year event because it could actually damage golf and some of these other tournaments where we've already seen, like last year, Justin Thomas have issues with fans and fans getting more belligerent? talking out, screaming out when guys are hitting, the whole camera thing going on. If they opened it up for more tournaments like Phoenix, would it actually hurt the game of golf?
Yeah, I would lean more toward that. I think this is a very popular event because of the fact that it's once a year that you get this ultra stadium effect, especially around the 16th hole at that par 3 and then the subsequent holes coming in to the clubhouse. I think it's a finish that's unlike anything in golf. There are actually players on the PGA Tour that will not play in this event because they feel like it's outside of the normal boundaries of what they signed up for to be players in professional golf. I think that's a little bit stuffy to me. I don't really buy that, but they just feel like they don't play well in an environment like this. And so you'd want to be careful that you're not alienating a large portion of your player base by spreading these out too often in the schedule. However, I think it's a really neat event. It's tremendously fun to watch. Remember, these are independent contractors on the PGA Tour. They're all self-employed, essentially, so they can choose to play an event or they can choose not to play an event. That's their ability and their right to do so as they submit their entry fees and register to play in a tournament. Problem is, if you get too many of these on the schedule, more and more guys will skip them, and it makes this one less special. Whereas if it's just once a year or twice a year, I think the guys can deal with that, and they just sign up for this tournament knowing that it's going to be crazy. And if they want to have fun and goof off and just bask in that environment, this is the time to do it. But normally throughout the year, it's not something they would want to do on a week in and week out basis. So I think there's a balance for sure. And I think it would probably top out for me as a pretty big golf fan, somewhere around 3 events a year. That would be the maximum that I would want to see anything like this.
Yeah, I think it's dangerous. I think that line is there. I think that they have to be careful not to cross over. I think if you did maybe one tournament now early in the season, one maybe in the summer, if there was a course in Vegas or Nashville or kind of a destination vacation sort of party type town where you could get a draw. And like you said, these guys don't want to play there. They frankly don't have to play there. And then maybe you don't get that bleed over effect into your other tournaments. You're not going to have people dressed up as Sesame Street characters on the 18th at the Masters or something like that, where there will be some decorum still at these tournaments. But look, it's a line that the PGA has to watch because they have to remain relevant. And if they find ways to draw younger fans into the game to watch it and be able to watch some of the young talent on display that we've talked about that sort of gets swept under the carpet under the Tiger effect, it may be something that they have to look at. Not every tournament needs to be that way, but 2-3 a year, as you said, I think that might be a nice mix for the PGA Tour.
Yeah, I agree with that take. It's kind of like the Roval that I was all excited about from Charlotte last year. I think NASCAR needs to implement some different strategies like that to get things to be more interesting. But there again, you don't want to do it too often throughout the year or the interesting becomes normal, right? So good point on that. We're going to look at NASCAR a little bit in next week's episode as the Daytona 500 is fast approaching. So we'll have a short preview of that. We'll also want to wrap up Super Bowl 53. Will it be Jared Goff and Sean McVay winning their first, or will Tom Brady and Bill Belichick win their sixth and hopefully ride off into the NFL sunset? We'll have all of that and more on next week's episode of Talkback. We appreciate you listening, and we hope you have a great weekend. Thank you for listening to this episode of Talkback. Staying current on sports is our #1 goal. So we drop a new episode each Thursday at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, or the podcatcher of your choice. For more info about the show, to meet the hosts, or to partner with us on future episodes, please visit TalkbackFanTalk.com. We really enjoy hearing your take on the world of sports, even when you disagree. After all, this show is dedicated to you, the fans. So get direct access to us on Twitter using @TalkbackJustin and @TalkbackEric. Check out our corporate feed on Twitter and Instagram using the handle @TalkbackFanTalk. We hope you have a great week. We'll talk back at you next time.